Okay, yeah, no problem. So I'm going to be streaming right now. So, hey everyone, welcome to another interview. This one's a little bit special. It's during the weekend, so I hope everybody's having a great weekend. And special too, because we have our first guest outside of Michigan. We have Miss Patricia Rodriguez. She is the CEO of Rodriguez Legal Group Incorporated. She is somebody that I'm really excited to talk to because she uses a little bit more social media in her law firm, it seems like, and I'm excited to talk to her about that. And she seems to, the last couple of interviews I've been talking with people that are very specific into one thing that they're working on. And it seems like at your law group, you guys do a lot of different stuff. And I'm really looking forward to talking to you about that. So if you don't mind just giving a brief introduction to who you are, kind of what you guys are working on right now, that would be great.
Yes, thanks so much for a wonderful introduction. And just to piggyback off of that, my name is Patricia Rodriguez, and I do own and operate the Rodriguez Law Group. I have had it for 11 years. A slight background for me, I grew up homeless till I was 7, and my mom was addicted to drugs till I was 13. And so I really had my own motivation behind that to become an attorney, even though I didn't really know what an attorney was. And so I managed to go to USC and then to law school. And right after law school, I started my own practice. I do have a background in business. I did get a business degree with an emphasis, a concentration on marketing and advertising. So I do think I'm able to see the business side of things as well as the legal side of things. And in doing so, we do focus a lot on social media, but I practice, our firm practices criminal defense, civil defense, custody, and divorce. We call it CCD. And so those are our areas of practice, which is a little more diverse than those who specialize in one area of law. And we do refer out all those other types of cases, plaintiff injury, real estate. So we're kind of a one-stop shop.
Gotcha. That's awesome. And, I'm curious, is there a reason, besides you saying, being a one-stop shop, is there a reason why you've kind of kept your practice broadened?
Well, initially I thought I would do criminal defense, like all my background, and I did mock trial for 3 years in high school, for 3 years in college, and was on Temple's national trial team. I kind of knew I was going to be a litigator, knew I wanted to be in the courtroom. And I grew up seeing a lot of injustice to Hispanic and Black people. That's, my mom is Mexican and my father's actually Black. And I grew up in mostly very disadvantaged environments. And so I always just wanted to get people out of jail, keep people out of jail. That was my mission in life. Then I had an opportunity to keep people in their homes and fight the banks when I first got out in 2010. And so my baby brother said to me, if you keep people in their homes, they're less likely to commit crimes. So you're kind of doing both. So before you knew it, I spent like a decade of my career fighting banks, Chase, Wells Fargo, B of A, Deutsche Bank, Bank of New York of Mellon, and doing real estate and real property and lender liability. But when the pandemic happened, things changed for all of us, right? And things changed for us. Foreclosures weren't happening, haven't been happening. No evictions were going on. And it wasn't the passion that I really have for criminal law. So it was my opportunity to go back into criminal law. And while there, I had done criminal law all these 10 years, but I hadn't focused on it. The same for family law. And so this was just an opportunity for me to do things that I really love doing and helping people with the things that I really like helping them with, and, being financially successful at it. So that's how I ended up kind of doing more than I set out to do originally.
Gotcha. No, that's awesome. No, that's an amazing story. I know you addressed this briefly, but your upbringing and being able to be where you're at now is really inspiring. I'm really happy that you've been successful. That's awesome, and being able to help those other kinds of individuals who maybe are facing similar situations or faced those situations in the past. I really got to give you props for that. That's really awesome. I know California has been hit, was one of, because of the densely populated areas. I know COVID affected them dramatically, and I know it said it affected your business. Besides, with everything that was going on with the housing and you shifting, what you were focusing on, what other parts of your business were affected by the pandemic, or even just like daily business wise, for your practice?
Everything's changed. So, you do something for 10 years and you think this is it, you know. And I was in trials right before the pandemic hit of March 2020. And when it did, I had 10 clients, and this never happened before. I had 10 clients all at once tell me they didn't want my services anymore. And it was understandable. They didn't have the problem anymore, or they lost their jobs and didn't have the income anymore. And then the courts closed. And it's like, talking to lawyers who've been doing this for 30 years, this never happened in their lifetime. Like, this isn't something like, that's, I think, when I really knew like we were in a pandemic, is when the courts closed. And it wasn't permanent. Like, the courts started to reopen, but it took months. It took months before the courts reopened. And when they did reopen, they opened mainly virtually, only for the most emergency things. And over time, you know, as we get closer here in California, they're going to lift the mask mandate, and the state of emergency is over on June 15th. So as we get closer to that, everybody's kind of anxiously holding their breath. Are we going to go back to in-person hearings? Or are we going to still do them via Zoom and phone calls? I mean, it just changes everything, because if you can do your court appearances on the phone, you can take on twice as many cases, because you're not traveling, you know, back and forth. Whereas like, if you have to have that travel time involved, I think it's going to significantly, you know, change my ability. Well, I mean, it just means I have to get more people. I have to hire other lawyers who can go to the appearances, versus, you know, I can keep my expenses lower if they continue to do it. But I've also heard that they did this whole infrastructure. They spent all this money on like LA Court Connect. They spent all this money like designing a virtual system, that they're not just going to abandon it now. So that's the main changes, I think, you know, is that it slowed everything down, and now it's like gradually picked back up.
Sure. No, and that's definitely what I've seen as well. And I'm curious, are you, I mean, I can kind of already form an opinion based on what you've been saying, but are you of the opinion where you actually kind of like the virtual side of things, or having a hybrid model, or are you somebody who
Oh
would
yeah,
much prefer?
I pray every day they keep it with the virtual. I mean, COVID was seriously unfortunate, and I'm grateful I didn't get sick, and none of my immediate family or friends have. I did lose some farther out friends, you know, it's terrible. But for my practice, like slowing everything down, allowing me to turn my attention back to the business side of things. You know, I went on a webinar sprint. Like, I really like took that time to like invest while everyone else was kind of like freaking out. And that when everything turned back on, like, it's been wonderful for my firm. It's been the best. Last year was one of the best years we had financially, like towards the end. And this year is set to be like our record year, like out of all the years that I've been doing it. So, Dominic. Excuse me.
No,
Sorry.
it's okay.
That's
Don't
my
worry about
younger brother. I'm not really sure what he was trying to tell me, but he wasn't aware I'm in the middle of something.
It's okay. No, that's awesome. No, congratulations on that. You know, I think it's kind of, you know, and I've said this, I think, in almost every interview so far. You know, COVID, obviously, like you said, was very unfortunate. But I think with this opportunity, you know, I mean, it's given a lot of opportunities. You know, for a lot of people, doors have closed, but also there's a lot of doors that have opened for others. And even if maybe doors haven't opened for you yet, I think if you're always constantly looking and maybe thinking about how you can adapt, there's so many other new possibilities that are out there because of everything that's been going on. And I think, you know, I definitely think that, you know, whether you like the virtual or not, I think to at least some extent it's going to be here to stay, because of, you know, everything that we've seen. Like you said, it can make it a little bit, you know, easier for maybe if somebody can't travel to the nearest court or something, if it's difficult, or, you know, the ease of use. And like you said, for some practices, kind of build, it can make it a little bit more lean of a business sort of. And
Oh,
I think it can be very
absolutely.
beneficial. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And, you know, I'd love to talk a little bit more, because it seems like you said you're very passionate about, you know, criminal law work. So, you know, honestly, I'd love to know, what are some of the biggest misconceptions you hear when it comes to, you know, criminal defense, and you know, working with a criminal attorney?
Well, I was thinking about it from the other perspective first. Like, when you hear about criminal defendants, like, I think everyone thinks like they come in all arguing that they're innocent and wanting you to get them off completely, like, you know, where there's no consequences. When in reality, like, most criminal defendants that come in the door are like, yeah, I did it. The facts are terrible. And, you know, the law's not great for me either. You know, what can you do for me? How can you fix this? Like, and I've found criminal defendants, you know, clientele to be just like they send me gifts, they give me the best reviews, like they love me. Like, and
Mhm.
that's very different than like a criminal, I mean, then foreclosure defense. Foreclosure defense, like the 5% of unhappy clients were just miserable people, like that really took no responsibility in their situation whatsoever. And so I found
Mhm.
that to be like much more challenging than criminal defendants.
Sure.
As far as like perceptions people have about criminal defense attorneys, like one that we're all liars, not lawyers, but liars. And I mean, that's certainly not true for myself. I grew up in an environment where like my mom always taught me like no matter what, like we didn't have money, like we didn't have any money. I mean, we didn't have money to eat food sometimes. So like if you don't have money, like my mom was like, it doesn't matter, you're still rich, you have your word. Your word is worth more than anything else in the world. And that may be all you have, but that's all you want. Like if you have your word over all the money, like you've got more than the person with all the money. So I feel like that's one misperception that people have, but I'm very like, I'll tell you how it is and what it is. And I don't hold like, I think people in that regard would think of me more as like an East Coast person, especially over here in California. Like I think things are much more, the weather's good, the marijuana is good. Everybody just wants like happy information all of the time. They don't really want to hear like what it really is. And so I
Mhm.
think when potential clients talk to me, they're always kind of like surprised by just how clear I'll make the situation, and also that I'll talk to them like at in Ebonics if necessary, like in a more street level where they can really understand like what I'm saying and not so much in legalese.
Sure. No, definitely. And I could see why that approach would be very valuable because, I mean, somebody in that scenario, they might not want the harsh truth, but I mean, that's probably going to be the most effective way of, helping them is giving them all of the facts, exactly what they need to know, and not, really picturing it like a fairy tale because honestly, it probably isn't most of the time. So that's really good. And it's funny that you said, because based out of Michigan and, with the cold weather, I think it's something that it's interesting, just the way that people act differently. I took a trip to Hawaii a couple months ago, and just the way that people behave, just because of the climate is kind of interesting. And I know, with everything going on in the state of California, are there things that with the justice system itself? I know, homelessness is a very, big issue that I know a lot of states are facing. Are there any things that you are looking towards the future, hoping to be improved, or, that you yourself are just looking to improve upon, I guess?
Well, so I mean, I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. So, like, I mean, this is, I'm sort of kind of used to some of the things that other people would think, like, the smog or the congestion with cars or homelessness. Like, it's fascinating. I had a boyfriend in college who wanted to be homeless. So he lived on the beach for a while. And in doing so, like, I got very familiar with like the homeless population out there. And a lot of people come from all over the world, all over the country. Apparently like heroin is best there. And so that's one draw. And two, it's great weather. Like it's great, like you can be out there when the seasons change, so like I I don't rely on politicians too much to save us in this world. If that were the case,
Hmm.
you'd think we'd be a little bit better by now. Like so
Yeah.
I think on an individual level, like on a firm level, I think we try our best to help as many people that come through our door as possible. And especially with the family law, we try to work with parents that are going through divorces, that are going through custody, to make it as easy for their children as possible, because I think ultimately the trauma that is caused, hurt people. So like to the extent that you can minimize trauma, like in any form and fashion, wherever you are, California, Michigan, the rest of the world, like you're going to have a better opportunity at seeing joy and love and passion, compassion and all those feelings that we all want, all the good stuff. I think you're going to find the good stuff more if you help people deal with the trauma better. So I invite my clients to look at like Abraham Hicks on YouTube videos and like law of attraction videos and hypnotherapy videos, alternative medicine, so that they can try to like find themselves so that they can help themselves find, who the best parent that they can be, or the best ex-wife that they can be, or the best just human they can be, So again, I try to come from a more holistic perspective. I recognize, especially in the family law and criminal law and real estate, you're doing more than just advising people about these things as to whether or not they're going to jail, or whether or not they're losing their family, or you're advising them about life, like how are you going to get through these moments that aren't so pleasant.
Definitely. No, that's awesome perspective. I really appreciate that. Thank you. I'm not exactly sure what the phrase is, but I know it's a saying somewhere out there is that, before you try and help others, a lot of times you have to try and help yourself, and get you in the right state of mind, the right state, if you really want to try and, make a positive impact on others, which I think is very important. I know you've kind of, hinted at it a couple times during this interview that you guys have been taking kind of a future-proofed approach to your law firm with everything that's been going on. So, the name of the group, like I said, how to future-proof your law firm. I'd love to know what you guys have been doing, whether it's getting on social media or just taking advantage of the online space, so that even if, something else happened where we were completely virtual, you guys would be one step ahead of the competition or something.
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel really blessed in that we had already gone almost primarily virtual before the pandemic. And what I mean by that is I really appreciated and respected and I care about my team, really, really deeply care about my team. And so for years, I had recognized, like years before the pandemic, that they were better off working from home. Like, why have them commute back and forth when I trust them? Like, and when I can gauge if they're working or not based on what's getting turned into me, I don't have to be watching them or micromanaging them. And I could go from this huge, $3,000 a month office to this small $1,500 office. So I had already done that pre-COVID. And I feel very blessed in that, because then it allowed me to
Good.
focus on what really matters. Like what really matters when we're talking about future proofing your firm is, do you have the leads? Like, let's get real. Like, if you don't have the leads, you don't have the clients, you don't have a practice. Full
Hmm.
stop.
For sure.
To the attorneys out there who think like, oh, this is just about practicing law. Like, I'm just here to practice. Not if you own your own practice. Like, you are absolutely
Definitely.
required, and you absolutely have to not only, get the lead, not only close the lead, not only do their case, but you've got to collect. Right? That's a whole nother question. Like, are you
Hmm.
set up to collect from your clients? Because you might not think you're a collection firm, but if you're doing 100,000 plus a month in business, you're a collection. You're doing some level of collections, like, or some
Sure.
level of just like invoicing. So for me to future proof my firm, I really think it comes down to leads. I really think it comes down to lead volume. It's a numbers game. There are 10 million people in Los Angeles County. In Los Angeles County, one county 10 million
A lot of
people.
people.
Right. All I need is this, but I mean, even somewhere that has 10,000, like, you only need like 0.001% or 0.01% to get you your 50 or 100 clients that you're looking for. So
Yep.
it's about finding those people that require your services within that 10 million people, right? So again, I went on a webinar sprint. I really turned my attention to the online presence, because that is where people look for lawyers. Like, word of mouth, okay. One way to get leads is through attorney to attorney referrals. And so we do that. But the main thing is diversify. Don't
Sure.
just have one lead source, and especially don't have one bad lead source. Like, for years I had Google ads, and I had this company that was running it and it wasn't doing well. And I just put my face down and like focused on the practice of practicing law. And so, like, no, like, you have to pay attention to that. And the best way to make it so you don't really have to pay attention is, like I said, to diversify. So I set up on the weekends and at nights, I set up all of my social media. Like, I have a Twitch account, I have a Pinterest, I have like a spreadsheet of like 150 like social media and listings that all host my stuff. Now, if you're smarter than me, you'll know that some of them are indexed and some of them aren't. So you should really look for the indexed ones and just focus on those, or hire someone who knows what I'm talking about. But I learned that kind of after the fact. So I put in a lot of work to ones that weren't indexed. But hey, all the ones that are indexed are on there. I
Yeah.
must check my Google presence, like, I don't want to say daily, but at least every 2 days, and I have like 110 reviews. Get Google
Awesome.
reviews. Google rewards, Google products is one of the key things I learned. So, like, do a YouTube channel, because again, Google rewards, Google products. So Google reviews, YouTube, anything owned by Google. will really, Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff is really helpful. And so in doing all of that, I found this thing called Google Screened, which is like local ad services. And so I got in early on that when it was still in beta testing, and it has been amazing for the practice. But I also recognize that at any point, it's supplemented by all these other forms of, you know, lead generation. And it's also driven by content. I'm constantly putting content up. This will go up. You got to have content, and you got to have new content and value driven content.
Definitely.
So,
No,
so
definitely.
I think future proofing it is about getting a solid lead source, diversifying your lead sources so that you have enough leads coming in, that you have enough clients coming in, and everything else flows pretty fluid from that.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I think there's so much to unpack there. That was awesome. Thank you so much, Patricia. I really appreciate that. Because I think it's definitely something, if you go into, trying to open up your own law firm thinking all you're going to be doing is practicing law, you're going to be missing out because there are so many other things that you need to do to actually run a business. And like you said, I mean, leads are really the fuel to the fire. Because you could be the best lawyer out there, but if nobody knows who you are, if nobody's coming to work with you, then you're kind of going to be stuck, and you're not actually going to be able to be the best lawyer ever. And I think you kind of hit it on the head. Oh yeah, what were you
Yeah,
gonna say?
I was gonna say, it just made me think. I think of it like a clock, and it's like each part of the practice is another spoke in the clock, another one of the wheels. And like or I think of it like a car with cylinders, you want it to all be firing. You want every spoke to be turning. Like you want the clock to be working, and like you said, like when it comes to like the car and the cylinders firing, like the fuel for those cylinders to fire is the lead generation. And it is your closing though, right? You could generate 300 leads and you could review all those leads, and if you're not closing them, then you've wasted more money getting the leads and
Yeah.
screening the leads than you would have been better off just not going down that road. So
Hmm.
I mean, your close rate has to be good. And what I was taught in business school was do it like an assembly line, right? Like when you're putting a Barbie together, the person who's putting the head on the Barbie is one person. That's the person who's going to put the head on the Barbie. Someone else is going to put the arms on the Barbie. Somebody else is going to put the legs on the Barbie. But the person who's best at doing the heads, person who's best at doing the legs, person who's best at doing the arms are going to do their individual parts on the assembly line. The same thing is true for you at your practice. Just because you can close, just because you can do certain parts doesn't mean you should. You should do the thing that you're best at, practicing law, and you should have someone else who's best at running. I have a business manager and I call him my golden goose because that's how it really runs.
Hmm. No, definitely. I think that is very, kind of having a specialization within it. It's very important. It's kind of like are you familiar with like the 80-20 rule?
Yes, yes,
So yeah,
yes.
like 20% of what you're doing is leading to 80% of the results a lot of times. So making sure that you're prioritizing what you really only you could be doing, or really what you are the best at, I think is very important.
Yeah.
When it comes to lead generation, I think a lot of people, are sometimes worried with the online, world, I guess, just because it's a little bit unfamiliar. They're more used to doing billboard advertising or radio advertising or TV or anything. And I hear something a lot of times is that, oh, online leads suck. They're the worst quality ever, blah, blah, blah. How have you, what do you see when it comes to online lead quality, and what is your process of actually screening these leads to bring them to actually closing and becoming a client?
Well, first of all, I think, like I said, people attract what they think. So if you think you're going to get bad leads from online, well, then you're going to get bad leads from online, because the universe doesn't want you to think you're crazy. So the universe wants to give you what you're telling the universe you want. So if you want good leads, tell the universe you want good leads. Let's start there. But past that point, look, I mean, the thing about billboards, the thing about radios, I've done all of that, is they're not targeted marketing. So you're
Hmm.
getting,
Exactly.
your message out to 100% of people, and only 5% of those people require your services. And it's expensive. Like it's
Oh,
really
definitely.
expensive. So there's that. When you look at the online, like Facebook, Instagram, this is free advertising. Facebook profile is free. if you know what you're doing there, it's free, and you know, it requires your time. Instagram requires your time. Like, so, you know, if you want to pay for Facebook ads and you want to pay for Instagram ads, you can't do it in a vacuum. Like, you can't be blind about it. You have to either know who you're hiring and know that they're really good at what they're doing and not just somebody who decided to try it, or you have to be able to do it yourself, right? And it's the same thing for like Google Screen. Like, my
Mhm.
Google Screen campaign is so successful because I hired a company, Search Kings. I let them do the base work, the groundwork. I followed along as they were doing it, and I monitor it now. I make sure that it's going to the areas that, you know, the geo locations that I want it to go to. Like, I'm actively involved with the companies that I've hired to do this stuff. Epidemic, they handle my website and they handle my online like reputation, but I very much am active in making sure that it's exactly how I want it to be. And I think that active role in it really is the difference between a good campaign and solid results and a great campaign with exceptional results. Like, if I had to put something to why my campaigns have exceptional results. But I also think, you know, and I'll get to like, once the leads come in, how do you close them? But I think, like I said, it's important that you're actively involved with them. And this is something people don't realize. You could spend all that money to generate that lead online, or the other forms, the billboards and the radios and, you know, and TV. You can do all of that. And if they call your office and they have to leave a message, or they aren't able to talk, you know, they don't get a
Mhm.
live person, like, you will lose that lead immediately. A hot lead will turn cold before you even realize it. So, you know, hire a company like Smith AI, hire a company who's going to answer your phones, who's going to put them on your calendar immediately, because that's how you keep them from, you know, that's how you keep them being a hot lead and staying a hot lead. You know, even if you can't talk to them right then, if you can look, if it's slow enough for you that you can pick up the phone right then and screen them right then, pick up the phone and screen them right then. If not, and you have someone like Smith AI, or you have a team like I do, you pre-screen them for things that disqualify them. So you
Mhm.
pre-screen them for, can they afford my fees? If you can't afford me, you can't afford me. Look, I appreciate that. I want to help a lot of people. I did that for 10 years, very, you know, struggling homeowners. Okay, but that's not the practice I run today. It's not a free clinic. It's not a low income clinic. Like, it is, you know, a certain price to be able to afford these services. And that's the America we live in, right? And so till that system changes, that's a good defining qualification. And do you even have a
Definitely.
case? Is it even something that we help with? You know, you want to screen out those ones before they ever get to your closer's desk. And so once they're pre-screened for those pre-qualifying ones, then if they pass that pre-screening and they're in, you know, and if my pre-screener isn't able to close them, because hey, if they pass that and my pre-screener can close them, then they close them. My contract has a clause in it that says you've had a non-attorney intake. You're signing knowing that your attorney has not screened your case yet. And many are perfectly fine with that if the people that are working for you are knowledgeable and understand, and, you know, they're not giving legal advice, but they're explaining what the process and procedures are. Then if the person is not closed on that pre-screening and they want to have a closer, then they go on to my business manager's calendar. If you know, if they're comfortable and he's comfortable and they've explained everything, they close. Maybe they've chatted me. I use GChat a lot to talk to my entire 20 plus team of people. It's all through GChat. It's all like virtual, all automated. It's all through Clio management, you know, so
Mhm.
automate. If you're going to run a 90, 100 caseload and you want to see that level of receivables and revenue come in, you've got to automate. You're not, and it doesn't even make sense. Even if you could do it with more people, like I did 8 years ago when I had a big, huge boom, why would you? Like, that was so
Yeah.
much more expensive. My profit margin is so much better now. I'm so much leaner. I felt so happy when you use that word. And it's just, yeah, you've got to stay lean. You have to keep your expenses down while you're building up the caseload. And you do that through automation,
Definitely.
and you do that through delegation.
Yeah. No, this is awesome. This is like, you know, what you're doing, Patricia, is exactly where I think a lot of people should be. You know, that is awesome. I think this has been great, and I think, like you said, I mean, honestly, I hope people will maybe just listen to that part maybe just a couple times, because everything you said in there is very important. I mean, you know, like you said, delegating people super important. You know, having automating super important. I mean, there's so many different ways you can do it nowadays, that can, like you said, just keep your business a little bit more lean and really increase your profit margins. And I think a big thing, what you said there, I want to talk about is the pre-screening of the leads, because there's different forms of marketing that people can do. Whether it's like the Google screened, those leads could maybe be a little bit higher quality than, say, something from like an Instagram ad or something, which is more typical interruptive type marketing. But having a proper pre-screening process in place, I think, is very important, because that's something I hear a lot of attorneys say is, oh, well, yeah, I got 100 leads, but only one of them, actually wanted to pay me. Everyone else was just looking for free advice or whatever. And, it's funny because, I don't know what is going through these people's minds. I mean, you guys have gone through so much time to go to school, master your craft, build your business, and they're just supposed to work with you for free. I don't know what they're looking for, but having that in place to figure that out, can trim things up and really not only save you guys, money, but save you time on, oh, I didn't have to waste an hour talking to this person just to find out that they didn't have the money or their case wasn't really worth it.
Well, I want to say a couple of things. I limit all of my screening calls, all of my closing calls to 30 minutes. No one's ever going to get more than 30 minutes from me for free. And I try to limit it to about 15 minutes. And I can usually like get through what they're saying because they've already been pre-screened by somebody before them that took 30 minutes or an hour to write it all down. But that was somebody who's $17 an hour, $20 an hour, not my. The other thing that makes my practice really successful, I think, are flat fees. Flat fees, I think, make it a lot easier. You don't have to do the same level of accounting. You're not tracking it, the billable hours, so that's something else to look at. But I was going to say is that, like, in terms of screening and pre-screening, if I had a campaign going and I had 100 potential clients from it and only one was interested in hiring me, I would know that something was wrong. Like, absolutely, something is off there. Now, I would try to pinpoint and identify what's causing this. Is it my closers aren't closing well? Is it the leads are just bad leads, and then I need to be, getting these leads from a different source? But most people's problem, I think, is that we want like instant gratification. People want immediate gratification, and the reality is, whether it's SEOs, maybe take a little bit longer. But even if it's a Google screen ad, like whatever, it takes time. You're not going to see the results in the first 4 weeks. And especially because in the first 4 weeks, you're just getting results. So you have to take those numbers after the first month and use them and analyze them. Look at the analytics and see what's happening with the campaign to know how to adjust it up and down. When I started my Google screen campaign, we were spending $350 on family law and $350 on criminal law. And we wanted to see what the results would be. We saw that we were getting maybe 5 or 6 leads from that, and 1 or 2 were closing. Look, at $5,000 minimum to start, and in some cases go up as 25, 40, 45. Those are great numbers. I will run those numbers all day long. And so now we're at something like, $1,750 to $2,750 family law and criminal law. So it builds on itself. You don't start at 1750. You don't start, and I say between 1750 and 2750 because on any given week, we may want more or less leads. But how do I know like how many leads I'm going to get based on how much? Because I've got my fingertips like on the analytics, like I'm paying attention to exactly how many, I'm tracking it, track the potential clients that come in, track the closing. That way, the percentage. That way, if it's going up or down. And so, and again, diversify your lead source. There's so many lead sources out there. And attorney to attorney lead sources is just incredible. And what I mean by that is networking online. People, there's LA Attorney Network in LA. I'm sure there's something like Michigan Attorney Network where, or some, if there's not, create one, right? Yeah. Like bring all the lawyers together and be that, if you want to be like a online expert, then just, show people your expertise, so I think it's important that you have a diversified lead generation. I can't even just emphasize that enough, because if one lead source slows down, you want other leads coming in, because no leads coming in is like the kiss of death. You'll just find yourself with expenses without the revenue.
Yeah, no, definitely. No, that all I think is very good. I hope everybody's paying attention to what Patricia is saying, because this is very, very valuable. And I kind of want to shift gears a little bit as we wrap things up. obviously we talked about a lot of good things. Things are going, it seems like they're going great for you guys, which is awesome. But I am curious, um, are you facing any challenges right now, with in your business when when it comes to, if you tried a specific new lead source and it didn't work out, or some part of your business isn't really, or if it's just, within something maybe you can't control.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing to note was something I learned along my webinar sprint was there's going to be a lot of iterations of things. So don't feel scared to change things and do things differently. And, some things aren't going to always pan out. I did like a subscription plan thing, and I spent like $3,000 or something to get it started. And a lot of like infrastructure went into it and it didn't work out. Like, and I pulled it off the website entirely. And it's just one of those
Mhm.
things where everything doesn't work out. Like, but don't be afraid. Like, don't be afraid to take risks because that's really risk takers seem to, get the biggest payoffs on it all, So I'm not saying be reckless, but be willing to take risk without fear, you know? And we're all humans, right? So like when we really talk about like, is there anything challenging facing your firm right now? Like I'm the head of the firm, and this is one thing that's probably different from other people who are like really successful and have gotten down to an 18-hour work week. I'm not there yet. My firm is really big. I've got a lot of people working for it. The revenue is great. The profit margin's awesome, but it runs through me. And so it's
Yep.
long hours and I'm working a lot and I have a medical condition, fibromyalgia, and it's exasperated. So, I'm just hoping to like get some time off over the Memorial Day weekend. And two, I'm looking for a managing attorney. Pitch, pitch, pitch. And so, I think getting the right talent in to be a managing attorney or to be the paralegal, I think that is definitely an ongoing, I wouldn't say challenge per se, but it's just something that's ongoing that definitely makes the difference if you're going to keep building. Like you can only build so far with yourself and whoever you've got working with you. If you want to build past that point, it's not just about getting the lead generation, right? Because you can get the lead generation, you can close them. But if you're not doing the work, and you're not doing
Hmm.
it right, people are going to talk about that and they're going to talk about it
Yep.
online, like, and
Hmm.
it's going to come out real clear and real fast, and that is going to make getting the leads, closing the clients that much harder. So it's all like a loop, it's all a circle, it all feeds into itself. So I definitely have fixed the business side of things. The legal side is great, but I think as we build more, it's definitely important that I get the right people in to allow me to not overwhelm myself.
Sure, sure, yeah. No, and I think, we were talking before the call a little bit, that on the weekends you like to take, or at least starting to take a little bit more of a break, and I'm trying to do that as well. And I think, having a little bit of time for yourself so that you're not fully, personal life, business life, fully engulfed with one another. It's hard to separate the lines. Some people might want to do that, but for a lot of people, I think it's important to kind of separate them a little bit so you can at least, take some time to clear your head. So I'm glad that you're looking to do some of that stuff. And I hope and really wish you the best, that you can start doing that soon, start finding that help that you really need soon.
Yeah,
So
it's important. The work-life balance is very important. I recently cut my hair and dyed it like on Thursday. And that was just part of me wanting to like, you know, I'm going back to working out, like, getting massages. It's just important that we maintain, drink a lot of water, eat really healthy. If you're going to be running a firm at this level, then yes, I think, especially because mine's a litigation firm, like we try cases, it's just heavy litigation. I think if
mhm,
you're going to have that level of stress in your life, that's everybody else's problems. Like you said, you got to put on the mask on the plane for air first. Then you give the mask to the children next to you, like, or the elderly, right? So you got to breathe in the oxygen first.
definitely.
Did I
I'm
lose you?
sorry,
Oh,
Patricia. Yeah, I think there was a little connection error, but I think we're back now. And I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I think this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate all the value that you've been giving today. This type of talk is exactly why I created this group. And I think people listening will really have a lot of value out of it. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And
thank you.
we will see you all in the next one. Thank you.